All right, here we go. This is planning board, January 22nd. First up is Hill and Farm subdivision to approve the revised landscape plan. We got some input from Mark Case and Conservation, which was about invasive species, removing those, and what was the other thing?
Cash payment for the,
Oh, yeah.
to the butter crust.
Oh, yeah, the fee in lieu.
Fee in lieu of, yeah.
Yeah. And he's okay, he's good with that.
Yeah, I received an email from the abutter saying that he would receive $1,500 in lieu of the actual planting of trees.
Wasn't-
So-
Wasn't there like a number 2 with that, or did you take that off?
It doesn't really need to be there anymore, I have confirmation in the email.
Oh, it's all square?
It's, I mean, I can add it if you'd like, I
No,
can
no,
add
it's
it as a
fine.
condition.
No, that's good. I just saw the one that you sent us.
Yeah, this is the one that,
I think that's the
Oh,
one I sent you.
oh, maybe, yeah.
The only thing is, I ended up having to print out another copy, because I realized we weren't actually gonna have 5 members tonight, so this is the updated version
Oh,
here for
okay,
you to
cool.
sign, if the board approves it.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
What were the invasives that were there?
Oh, gosh.
Okay, never mind.
I apologize,
Okay.
I can ask Rebecca, but
It
I
does
kinda
not-
tuned out when they started talking about the actual species. She just
Okay.
basically went over and tagged them, and they were gonna take them down, so.
okay.
And then they're also gonna plant, a minimum of 3 pine trees in lieu of taking that vegetation down. If Peter Bradley, if he can, he said he'll plant some additional shrubs just for some stabilization of the area, so.
Okay,
Do we need to make a motion?
yeah.
That'd be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised landscape plan as amended. Is there a date?
Today.
Oh, as amended on January 22nd, 2020. And this is 2022, just so you know.
It does?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Alright.
Went crazy with the 2s.
Yeah. Let me print it right now.
Okay, I'll second the.
Okay.
I'll
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Sorry about
That's okay.
It's okay.
The good news, it's approved.
For
Bad
two-
news.
two
Yeah.
years
that. Let me write that thing 5 times too.
It's in engineering, you just can't, FPGAs especially, it's like, I just can't figure this thing out. And somebody looks at it like, oh, what are you talking about? It's this thing.
Yeah.
New set of eyes just finds things easy. Is Bob coming or no?
They should be.
Wanna-
To be honest with you, he didn't confirm, but, I told him that, you know, on, yeah.
Do we wanna look at
Minutes?
minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at them earlier, they look fine to me.
I can grab that decision.
planning board minutes for Wednesday, December 11th, 2019.
Second?
In favor?
Aye. Come on, jump to the annual report.
Sure.
So was I wrong? Are these the ends, are these the years that are the end of our terms?
That's what I have from town clerk's office.
I think that's wrong, because I
Is
think I
that
just,
wrong?
Yeah, it is wrong, yeah.
I think I was just elected this year, I think.
It was
19.
last year, so you would have been 2019, 2023, right?
I'm 24.
Sorry, 24.
Yeah, I'm 24.
2024.
Alright, I'll double check with Pam again.
Yeah, because I think I'm
I
2020.
pulled that from
I
our
think
contact sheet for board members.
You're 21, like you're after.
Am I? I don't know.
You shouldn't be before me.
I don't know, because I came in as a partial to replace.
I mean, we're all each one
But
year
I-
right now. No,
But
but there
didn't you,
there should be no doubles.
Rerun after that, or,
Did I?
thought-
don't-
I know you were
can't
filling out someone's
remember.
One of you
term,
did
but-
the 2 or 3. There should be one from each year.
That's what I thought. I
Yeah.
thought each year someone else kind of goes
I
on.
have no idea how it goes.
I'll confirm the numbers.
I
I'll
think,
make sure that they're
I think
correct.
you just did it the year before, right? So you have 23?
No, I'm up this year.
Oh, this year.
This year is my
So
term.
who do I have incorrect?
You have Eric incorrect, me incorrect.
And Mark.
I think Mark, you're next year.
Okay.
I think
You-
you're- I think
You
you're
remember better than I
2021.
do, so.
Yeah.
I don't know about,
My computer.
Mike, maybe Mike's is right, I don't know.
I'll check them all. It
Yeah.
sounds like they could all be off.
Yeah. All I know is I'm 4 and you're this year.
yeah.
Do you mind if I see that pen again?
I didn't get to read this before, but I've seen steroids always.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm 20, I thought I was this year.
I don't know, it's,
Yeah. It's hard to remember 5 years.
hard to think 5 years ago, I think, so
I know.
it's.
In the Century Mills section, did you wanna say anything about partial road acceptance? Or that's kinda you say. Should we mention that was splitting it into 2, or you said having approximately 4,000 feet of road?
Yeah, it says the planning board anticipates that the developer will seek to have approximately 4,400 of road finished in 2020 and ready for road acceptance at 10.
I was trying to keep it very high level. I
Okay,
don't
that's
get
fine.
the weeds of, because it, I feel
Yeah,
like
but-
that project
yeah, but if you
changes
look
every
at-
day on.
If you look at the beginning of the paragraph, it says approximately 7,300 feet of
Yeah.
the road, and then we're looking to accept 4,400 of it,
Okay,
basically, so.
yeah, that's fine. Construction continues at 147. You never hear anything from 649 Main Street. How many houses they have back there now? You can see one from the road, I think.
Mhm.
I think there's 3,
Oh, is there 3 now?
2 on the left, 1
Is
on
that
the
the
right.
Tadmore?
Who's
No,
doing
that's
that?
one next door.
Oh, that's one, that one, okay.
Same as Manny, I
Annie and Nico.
They must be doing something right, because I don't hear anything from them.
They've gone to a certain point, same thing with Tadmore, that they're trying to sell the homes before they continue.
Mhm.
They've cleaned up their sites, they have them
Yeah,
buttoned
but
up.
I think
and-
Tadmore has 2 houses built, right?
Right,
2,
yeah.
and then, but at least they put up that nice fence so
Right,
that you
they-
can't
for the
see
common
into.
driveway one,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can't
lot.
see into there, which is
So you think
good.
there's 3 back there?
On, I believe there's one on the right and 2 on
On
the
6,
left.
on 60, at 64, 649.
Mhm.
Alright, I may have to double check that building
I
permit.
believe so, you can take a
We
right.
ran
you know,
the
before you-
report and I came up with 2, so I'll
You
have to
just
look
drive
again.
over there tomorrow if you're in.
Yeah, maybe I'll just drive, walk in or.
I thought it was 3, 2 and 1.
each other,
Yeah, no, it looks good.
yeah.
Should we wait to make a motion until this is,
Oh, just
Six,
approve
or
I
it.
need
just-
to get it to Jenny.
okay,
Yeah.
so I'll make a motion to approve the, planning board annual report with, amendments potentially to be made for the fiscal, or the term years to be adjusted as
Term
necessary.
expirations. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, okay. I'll just send this one, you can correct the years.
Yeah, you can just hand correct the years.
I don't technically need a signed copy anyway.
Okay, good.
That's fine, yeah. But I'll keep it in my file.
Yeah. I'm just gonna recycle it anyway, so
Do you
whatever.
have a copy, did you sign the meeting minutes though?
Yeah, you got it there. You just scooped it up with
Did I
the other one.
scoop it up?
Oh, you know, did everybody sign?
Oh, do we all need to sign it?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
Oh, it should be
But no,
right at the
it's
top.
Oh,
Oh,
Sorry.
it stopped at
What did I
me,
give you?
sorry.
Oh, I give you the agreement.
You gave me
Yeah,
the
yeah.
decision and the,
Yeah.
Do I need to date it?
No.
whatever. Okay, well,
Should we wait for Bob and,
we're just 5 minutes late already, so.
I think you just move forward.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be pretty straightforward.
yeah.
Anyone come up with potential articles?
Well, we'll just go with Keith's farm.
Oh, we can, oh, sorry, we can go forward with it,
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
oh,
I didn't
yeah.
realize.
It's 7 minutes late,
Review
so.
the bond reduction.
So Keith Farm, yeah, so
Okay.
reviewing and approving the bond reduction for Keith's Farm. So we got an estimate from Trishon, which now, Fred, you review this?
Yes, I did.
Do you have added notes on here? or is it-
Nope,
Okay.
they revised it after just a number of back and forth, and the latest one getting today is the final acceptable one.
Okay.
Okay.
Want to just quickly explain what
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
doing?
yeah.
Okay, basically, if you look on sheet 3, the 5th column over says total,
Yep,
and then the 8th column over says remaining per estimated amount.
yep,
Okay, the other ones you can disregard. If you remember before, Rhino had submitted also a construction estimate at the beginning, but they had missed a lot of items that we added in. So you're looking at those two. Under the total, this is back in January, a year ago basically, I think it was the 23rd, they had done drainage, they had done the gravel for the earthwork, they had partially built detention basins, things of that nature, and it was $454,000 was the bond that should be there. I guess with the 1.5, I don't remember what was,
It's, the total amount is $681,015.
that seems like the 1.5, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you look over to the remaining amount, 303,400. That's what's remaining. So above it, and all the lines above it show what's been done. And what I, in talking with Erica way back, they had asked for, in this, when I say asked, they had done it by saying, oh, 15% of this item is done, 20% of this item is done. And I think we had talked about this before, that, and I know Erica and I have, there's no reason to give partial parts, because you come down to 10% is left in the end, and it's not enough money for them to finish.
Right.
So if you know, if we did all these partials every time they sawed in one area of grass and they still have
yep,
99% of the site, things like that. So I asked them not to, and they took out the partials. The only partial there is on
binder.
the binder, and the reason why it's a partial is we want to always keep money in there for repairs. It isn't a partial as much as they got the whole thing removed, but the whole thing deleted, so they did it, but there's gonna be, you can see already
There's gonna be
today,
some damage.
there's already
and stuff.
damage, so I put 10% back in.
Yeah.
So that's about the only percentage. There's another one down almost to the bottom of page 1, it's italicized, detention basin 1.
Yep,
That number, if you look, was in Rhino's estimated amount to do it, which isn't what we're looking at. We're looking at the column just before it, which has it broken down into 4 segments for detention basin 1. So there is no percentage, partial percentage, except for the binder, and that's only to hold money for repairs.
So you're saying the 4 items below the italicized row?
Right, that's what we're looking at. Rhino's numbers, all in red,
Yeah,
really have no bearing on anything.
Right.
yeah.
Those is numbers, if you look on the next page, it's page 2, 3, and
Yeah.
2 and 3, he didn't include a lot of different
Yeah,
items. So his estimate was never something. We put it in there day 1, we should delete it now, that's beside the point. Sean Dillis kept it in. It was there just to give what their
Got it.
contractor had
got
put
it.
down. But the real one is Deshaun Dillis's
Yep,
numbers, which is the total, and then their remaining amounts, which is column 8.
okay.
Little confusing, and I think next time around I'm gonna ask them to take out and consolidate, take out the rhinos in the last column, which is based on rhino, which really has none of those numbers have any bearing.
So
Okay.
they ran the electric, that's done, binder coat's done. Sub-drain's done, scrape gravel and fine grade, grade and cover cistern. So all those items you're reviewed and you're happy with?
Yep, I've
Yeah.
seen them constructed and completed.
So which was the basin that was overflowing? Was that
1.
basin 1?
Yes, well, all, not overflowing as much, but they all had issues.
We're good with those now, those issues are
Yeah.
resolved?
I haven't been involved as much as Rebecca,
Mhm.
and you were at one time, you were on it weekly, way back?
Way back
Way
when
back.
they had the issue with the
Right.
erosion control.
There's no reason to hold money back to the spring for those
They're
items?
stabilized now, aren't they?
No, just basin 1, which is
Just
the one
basin.
near the street.
Okay.
Number 2 is halfway up on the right, 3 is all the way up at the cul-de-sac on the left. But the outlet structures are in, the spillways are in, the core material, the berms, they're all in, but only one is stabilized with grass.
Okay, alright.
But it was also breaching over the top and going, it wasn't even built when the thing was really breaching. It wasn't
It's just a
fully
hole.
constructed. Yeah, exactly. It was a roughed out
Yeah.
and not, the core wasn't in there, things like that.
So you don't feel there's any need to hold it back to see how it performs in the
No,
spring?
and the drainage was also, everything was coming down to 1
Yeah,
because they
Yeah,
didn't
'cause they
have
had all
curving.
the other stuff in
And then
there.
they built pavement around the catch basins to, as it came to a catch basin,
Yeah.
wouldn't bypass it. So they're all, the drainage is going to the correct, basin 1, 2,
Yeah.
and 3.
yeah.
Before it's all going, well,
Okay.
3/4 of it was going to, nothing was going to 2, it was all going down to 1. So it was overtaxed too at the same time.
So-
Yeah, I think that project was a good lesson of, next time we go through the definitive subdivision approval process, we should probably spend more time focused on construction phasing diagram and understanding how they're gonna control their runoff during those initial stages of construction, because I feel like.
It's a little tough
It is tough,
on
but
doing it just because that's a means and methods, but I think if they can at least maybe, I mean, we could always ask them to provide some calculations for, sediment, temporary sediment basins and stuff like that.
But I think we can ask for their construction sequence. We
Yes.
won't dictate
Yeah.
to them what
Yeah.
their method and means will be, but certainly we can ask for their sequencing. And like, I think if they had built out their basins initially, maybe that wouldn't have been as much of an issue, so.
Well, I think the other thing.
And adding the appropriate,
Right.
But
something
really
to
directing it,
divert
get
the
into the
water
catch,
into.
right, that
Right,
was the
right.
biggest thing.
And
Right.
the other thing is we could look at is, do we wanna limit the amount of earth that can be exposed at one
At
time?
one time.
I know that, a NIMD's permit will recommend, no more than 2 acres, but maybe it's something we say, no, you can't expose more than 2 acres at a time, or some, every project's different, so I wouldn't wanna put it in, in the rules or regs, but it might be something we wanna recommend.
Or just think about when we're going through the permitting process,
What also happened, and they do have a sequence, whether it's in the operation maintenance or whatever on the plan, but they kept on putting off the basins. Those were supposed to be done first,
Yeah.
before the drain, they kept on putting it off because the weather wasn't cooperating
Yeah.
every hour.
Yeah.
So they built all the drainage, and then they had no place for it to really,
To
it wasn't
go.
directed to the correct places,
Right.
because it's still on
So
its way to
now,
put it.
for
But they
the-
did have a sequence in there, but they didn't follow it. So getting back to what Danielle's saying is,
Yeah.
you know, they all have that, and it's all in writing, and, but to, you either have to stop them right then and there, and so you get that.
Yeah.
done. And everyone was told, you gotta get these done next week. And then they did get it done when it became the
Yeah, I
stress
mean,
cease and
maybe,
desist.
perhaps it's more an internal thing, it's just, you know, prior
It's a
to a
contract.
building permit, you know, there may be a way
Right.
of making sure that they get some of those controls in place prior to building.
Mhm.
So now, do we take this, this 303,400 is the amount we're basically good at, we need to add 1.5%?
Right.
1.5 times.
Yeah, that's what I mean, sorry, 1.5 times.
There's about 100, it's about 150 that, plus, 150 plus 1.5 that you're reducing it by.
Right.
So 225,915, I think is.
That's the number I came up with.
All right, so wait,
Okay.
did I do something, so I thought we'd take 303,400 times 1.5.
Yeah, is
Yep,
455,
100.
100, yeah. And right now, in the bond, there's 681,015.
Oh, where'd that come from?
The 1.5 times the 550, 454.
Oh,
You didn't-
okay,
You didn't do that 1.5, right?
gotcha, sorry. So, okay, so now, yeah, 225.
That's what, like 150 times 1.5 to 20.
So that's what's gonna be released. Is that right?
Yep.
Wait, I'm sorry, say that again?
So the 225,
Yes.
915 is the amount that's gonna be released. All right, fine.
Can I talk about, well, I guess you can take care of this. and then-
Is there anything in your construction report that would be impacted by the money they want released?
No, everything that they've asked for, so to speak, through Deshaun Dillis, and with my review back and forth with them,
I'll
first
make-
we did it.
I'll make a motion to approve the bond release of $225,915 for Keys Farm.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Want to go through your report a little bit?
No, I did, well, I couldn't, but I wanted to ask about something else. I don't know if you remember, and I want to say it was September, I should look at the date, September 26th, 2018, at a meeting here, we talked about the street trees along Hudson Road. I don't know if that was the date or not.
It's
Yep.
sometime in September, I think.
That was with
So
the
he's
tree
supposed
warden
to-
work that he took
Right.
down.
We're
trees he
supposed
wasn't
to put in
supposed to.
10 new ones
Okay,
at
yep,
3.5 to 4 inch caliber.
okay.
Okay, there are 4 in there now, at under 2 inch caliber. Just so you know. I assumed that was gonna come up tonight, and he says, well, we put in, that was another one of those, they put in 4 trees instead of 10, which is just less than 40%. They put in some trees near basin 1, but no other ones, so that would've been one of those items where we put in 15% of the trees we'd like to, so that's one of those that we shouldn't give it per tree. If they put in 1 tree, we should deduct it from this.
Right.
Okay, so wait,
So
this
getting
is,
back to, that was just an example, good example.
Yeah.
They put in 1 tree out of 100, we shouldn't take off 1% of
Yeah.
the line.
Yeah.
They put in 50, we shouldn't take 50% off, in my opinion. But getting back to the trees on Hudson Road, I haven't said anything to them. I thought it would be brought up tonight if they were here. But the trees that they're putting in, before they go, now, why they put in 4 and not 10? The meeting says 10, that's in my notes and on what I wrote down in my plans. And that's what it is right here, 10 on sheet 2, trees on Hudson Road, second last line.
wait, is this still Keys Farm? I just-
Keys Farm, yeah.
Okay, so that's right, so. Where are we?
Sheet 2, second to last line.
So these-
second
Trees
to
on
last.
Hudson Road, you have 10,
So there's 10,
And
he's
it's
put in
0.
4 that are half the size, less
and
than
they're
half the size.
supposed to be 4 inches, and they're
3.5
putting
to 4, if I remember in my
Okay.
head. And they're definitely not what they're supposed to be. So what I'm getting at is, well, if you put in 4 instead of 10, wouldn't you, why would you put in the 10? Because you would say, oh, I've done what I'm supposed to do. So before he puts in 6 more,
Yeah, we should say something.
right,
He knows, I've already reached
Oh,
out to
okay.
him about it, because, a couple, maybe a month ago or more, I got a call from the tree warden, relaying to me that they were the wrong species in
I
California.
don't know those
Oh, so
species
they're the
either.
wrong species.
They may be, I think, I believe so, because from what Bob was saying, the nursery that he received the trees from didn't have the correct species in stock. or
Did you
whatever.
say why he didn't put in 10?
We didn't talk about that. I just told him that what was installed was not approved, and he fully understands. I think he probably expected it, and he said that he'll have them removed this spring, and he'll put in
Okay.
Oh,
the right trees. And hopefully the trees that were planted could be planted somewhere else.
Probably 10.
Yeah.
They're still not the right size. Again, this was same as about
But I hate for them to
Long
just
Hill Road.
be thrown out.
It's supposed to be 2.5 than the regular trees, and this is under 2s. These at least 4. I didn't put the other ones.
If that's put them back behind the basins or something to.
But they're still supposed to be 2.5-inch minimum.
Well, I'm just saying, if these are extra trees, if he
Oh,
wants
right,
to
he
put
could
in,
use them, yeah,
Yeah.
even along the
use them
street
somewhere
possibly.
to help, or, yeah.
Mhm. There's a lot more trees to be put in, there's,
Yeah.
I don't even know what the number is, what was the trees in regular? Trees behind the basins was 15 of them, and trees. Have that number there. Street trees, 42 of them on sheet 1, so it's still 50-plus trees to be put in, so they can utilize them someplace,
Yeah.
those 50.
Even though we're not the right size, you may say, okay, if you're putting 15 behind the detention basins, maybe you mix them in.
I guess we gotta go with
Yeah,
6 inch
something.
plants from now on, and we get 2.5. Well, there's someone that's been before me, said, oh, they're gonna grow.
How many people are living in there now?
Let's go back to the annual report.
Oh,
I had
it's
it
in
written in
there.
the annual
That's
report.
fine.
And certificates of occupancy within issued.
10?
And
Alright.
then a total of 13 locations.
It's going pretty fast.
Yeah,
houses.
they're selling quick.
Yeah, selling, yeah.
What about the affordable? Is there anybody in there yet?
Not yet, so, I did receive, so they're using MCO Associates to do the lottery, and they've submitted an application to DHCD to get them on our, subsidized, housing inventory. However, I received an email last week from DHCD saying that they had some concerns about accepting them. One question was, why weren't the affordables incorporated into the larger development? So I think I explained that rather well, that it was a historic home, this was
Otherwise
an
we would've lost
opportunity
that.
to, preserve it, and at the same time, be able to actually construct 2 affordable units in it. It's sort of the cornerstone of the development, I do think that it's incorporated, and I kind of just explained those various things. And then, their second concern is, typically, I did not know this, they don't like to approve, duplexes as affordable units, because I guess when they set up the HOA or the condo fee or whatever, it's hard for them to sustain money in it to maintain the dwelling units. So, for whatever reason, they're concerned about that. So, she said she was gonna go back, to the group internally and then get back to me with their input. So I was actually gonna wait until I heard from DHCD
Yeah.
to bring it to your
Okay.
attention, but since it came up.
I would stink if it didn't get included.
I think, cause,
Sounds like you gave a
Bob,
good
but
idea.
his partner, Dave, he had reached out to me saying, what are we gonna do? And I said, well, if they don't accept it, let's come up with a plan B. I think there's other options of trying to make it work, because even if they're not affordable in the sense that they're on the inventory, they're still gonna be affordable compared to other
Percent, yeah.
houses within Bolton, and that is something that we're trying to address in the housing production plan anyway. So, worst case scenario, even if they're market rate, they're still more affordable, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
It provides diversity in housing in town.
yeah.
Perhaps, again, this is just pure you know, brainstorming. I don't know what they could get for market rate duplex. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that would be an investment to someone to be able to rent or have two units. If they could get
Yeah,
the
like
same
extended
market rate
family
value
or
for
something
two
like
versus
that.
one, maybe we could swap a lot, and maybe they could give us a different single-family home lot in that development. I don't know.
Well,
Might actually show people that the duplex doesn't have to be a straight side-by-side ugly
Yeah.
thing, that you can actually do it nicely and.
I thought it's been
What-
done well, but, you know, they may have to do a.
have you been in there?
No, I'd like to go in, so I think
Yeah.
VHD might be doing a site visit, and if they do, I'd, you know, I'll attend, so.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this?
That's enough.
Potential articles?
All
I
set?
think we're good,
I
yeah?
think we're good.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
Thanks, Fred. All right, we're just at our normal starting time, so gonna be here.
Yeah.
All right. So going through the articles, amend limited business and industrial zoning district boundary lines to actual property lines. This is basically what we did last year, all the same properties. It's just how we explain it, whether we want to do anything, take any of them out, which I don't think is necessary. Do we have anything to say about this now or no? Or we just have to decide what we wanna do?
We've got Kia's comments from last year.
Huh?
Yeah, it was just,
We've got Kia's comments from last year.
This is all based on the notion that they'd be gaining a lot more business coverage. So,
which is not correct, right?
which is not correct.
So explain to me again how it works. I was trying to remember.
So the whole lot, whether it's residential or business, could be used, so whatever, you know.
Is
the
used to
coverage.
determine the coverage.
But currently, all that coverage has to fit into the business zone area.
So they would take, which
So
one are we
this-
looking at? This is the capital, right, or?
Yeah, so if you just say the lot is 10, the parcel is 10
Yeah,
acres.
Yeah,
We have, I think, 25% coverage for
I
commercial?
thought it was 20.
Is it
it
20?
might be 20.
20.
I think it's
Okay,
30
20.
for,
25 is in next year.
Yeah,
and
okay,
30 is
20.
industrial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you take 20% of that, so you've
Yeah.
got 2 acres that can be used for commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the front, let's say the front acre and a half is where the existing house and barn are.
Mhm.
If somebody wanted to develop, wanted to expand, it would all have to fit within that acre and a half in the front,
Yeah.
which may mean that those buildings go to make room for something that's more efficient for the new business to go into.
Mhm.
If we change, and that also includes septic and well, I think, all have to be in the commercially zoned. And it's basically anything supporting that commercial, that zoned use has to be within that coverage area, I believe.
I don't know, I've heard conflicting things about that,
Okay,
so I'll have to.
so I thought that was
confirm
one of the things that was one of the issues when Canes were looking at rezoning there, was that they wanted to be able to put the septic in back, but it was in a different, that was zoned residential, but it would be supporting commercial. And that was, I think, where they had to put a town meeting. But anyway, so if you've got that acre and a half of commercial area, that would have to be where everything would fit.
Okay.
When we rezone it all as commercial, or if we rezone it, when town meeting rezones it all as commercial, now that 2 acres of commercial coverage can go anywhere in the 10 acres.
Yeah.
So you could keep the acre in the front where the house and barn are, and put another building in back for, and with another acre of coverage for, the expansion.
I thought the concern was that, maybe I'm wrong, So what, well, let me just back, what was the concern? I'm trying to
That
remember.
we're adding a lot more business coverage, which.
And
we
which
want.
is not correct,
Which
because
is
the
not
business
correct.
coverage is based on the total lot acreage, no
It's
matter
to-
what.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So-
Yeah, it's not like we're taking the 1.5 acres that's zoned commercial
Yeah,
and saying you can get 30% coverage on that.
yeah. No, it's, we were saying,
30%, or, it's 20% of the entire,
but it has to be within the
but it
commercially
has to be
zoned
within the
area.
commercially zoned area.
So
exactly.
technically, if you only had, an acre of commercial and 9 acres of residential, well, you could have 2 acres, you can't fit that on the 1 acre, so
Right,
you
but that
really-
means that with, other than the sideline offsets,
Yeah,
you have that entire acre in front would be your commercial.
yes, but
Which-
you wouldn't be able to build up to the full 2 acres.
You wouldn't be able to build up to
because
the
you
full
don't
2
have
acres,
that.
right,
Okay,
right.
I got you.
Right,
All right.
but it also means that it forces, it forces what a lot of people also complain about is that the business is right on the street.
Right, the street versus being able
Because
to
if the whole lot were,
zone commercial.
you could push it further back,
Yeah.
and like, the Kane property, if that got rezoned and it got developed, they could push
Yeah,
away
it all-
from 117 so
So-
that you've got
Okay.
screening and everything.
So this
Yeah.
isn't allowing any more commercial development on the parcel. And I
Just
think
where it can go.
Correct, just
it's
where it
just
can go.
where it can go, and I
Right.
think that's a key point
Yeah.
that we need to point out.
Yeah.
So, arguably, I will correct slightly what you
Okay.
said,
Okay,
was if the current commercially zoned area is less than what they could get,
oh, I see what you're saying,
Then
then it could allow,
it's
yeah.
increasing it, but it allows much smarter placement of
Yeah.
that additional.
Yes, yeah, because if took my example I just said, then yes,
Yeah.
you could have more.
And weren't they all also nervous about with the building that was over here, where they could rezone it business, they could knock it down and build?
Right, that's the one we're talking about,
Yeah.
the capital.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
bulk capital, yeah.
Well,
Right.
and I
They
think,
can do that now.
Yeah, I mean, somebody could buy it right now, and the thing is, right now, if somebody bought it,
They'd be more likely to.
and they, let's say they wanted to put in a strip mall,
Yeah.
or, a couple of small businesses, the only place they could do that would be right by, right down close to 117, which would almost force them into demoing the buildings that everybody wants to preserve.
Right.
Whereas if it's zoned fully commercial, we could work with them to keep those
Mhm.
and put the additional ones further back.
Around,
Yeah.
Around it,
Space it out more than.
Space it out a
yeah.
little
So it's
more,
not-
push it a little away from
Right.
So
117.
the view is still the same.
Exactly, yeah.
It just
Right.
doesn't make sense to have the split zoning. Yeah.
That's talking
I
the
do a
logic
bit-
side of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Business
It doesn't-
owners- I mean,
yeah.
I guess her one argument of,
What was the
well,
other, yeah?
well, also her other argument was, well, maybe you could use the residential part for some type of,
Houses or something
some type
like
of
that,
housing,
yeah.
affordable housing, which I could see that argument, I guess.
But
And you
if
wouldn't be
it's
able to do
zoned,
that
if
if
it's zoned commercial, somebody could come in as a 40B and do it anyway, so.
And that's
What's
the
the
only way
difference?
that's the only way
Yeah.
they could do it now anyway, right?
Why is that?
Well, if it's
Well,
zoned.
they could put on the residential portion.
Why couldn't they build houses on the, residential
Yeah.
portion? They could, right?
Yeah, they could,
But if it ends up being all commercial, they can't put a house there.
correct. Well, 40B they could,
40B.
but
But I mean, they couldn't do, so.
they couldn't do it straight up, yeah. So that one argument of hers is valid. So that's something to think of.
Yes and no though, because we're also working on developing our housing production plan. And if you look at, what we're working towards with that plan, the Bolton Capital Group property isn't coming into the equation for affordable
No,
housing.
it
That's
isn't.
not a property that we're
Yeah.
targeting for
Okay.
affordable
Yeah,
housing.
yeah.
I mean, and that's something that she had mentioned in her email
So
concerning
that-
that.
Brings up a great point. One of the things here, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, thinking of questions that can come up was, why are we putting this forward when we haven't finalized the master plan and we haven't finalized the housing production plan? Right, that's not finalized, right?
It's not yet.
Yeah,
no.
so still work. I mean, do we wanna wait a year, or is our response more of, we are working with and understanding what the housing production plan is moving forward with, and we understand this wouldn't be a part of that, so we're
So why don't
Our-
I bring this article to the master plan steering committee at one of their future agenda meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we can get their buy-in, like.
Then I would feel more comfortable.
I mean, the reality is that the master plan may give some broad direction, it's not gonna give a specific, we want,
No, I know,
we
but
want,
if,
you know,
but
this
if,
area, commercial in this
Yeah.
area, you know.
but I think if we
and
could say, though, that it was brought in front of them,
I think if we can get, certainly if we can get
buy-in or something.
buy-in
yeah.
or support from master planning
Right.
that, you know, this is independent of any
Right,
master
and
planning
again, I
board.
think we need to
Yeah.
focus on the fact that this is the zoning map, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's nothing
But
valuable
all
about
the
having.
questions will come out.
No, I completely agree, but there's
And-
nothing valuable in having a split lot, a
Right.
split zoned lot
Right,
that is gonna promote something in a master plan,
Yeah.
like, we're not gonna be
Yeah.
going, oh, we really need a split zoned lot to do X, Y, and Z, that's just not gonna
Right,
happen,
right.
so.
Yeah,
yeah.
Um,
And are there any of the lots in here that are on the intention of the housing production plan?
no. I mean, in
Yeah,
general,
I mean, that's the other
He's, or,
cane,
well, but that would be a 40B.
it would be a 40B unless we
Yeah.
brought forward.
I'm saying there's no like residential lot that we're targeting.
Oh,
Those-
as to turn
yeah,
into business,
yeah,
yeah, no,
no.
yeah.
no.
I mean, actually, in general, the Affordable Housing Production Committee, whatever it's called, is in favor of 40Bs in particular areas because we can, you know, get the 100% SHI.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
And it's, you know, if we want it done and we want it to get our percentage, it might just be easier for everybody just to go,
Yeah.
to go that route than to get some
And
bylaw passed.
and the reality is like the Kane property, if that's gonna go 40B,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the zoning is.
Exactly.
So whether we clean up the zoning or not,
Yeah,
if
right.
it's gonna go 40B, it's gonna go 40B.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't, but that's, you know.
So that, I mean,
So,
like Eric was
I
saying.
I think getting a statement from
The master plan steering
Yes.
committee.
master
If we can
planning
get them on
and
board.
from housing
The housing
production,
production.
Okay.
that,
I think that would be
Yeah.
very good.
that, yeah, I think that would alleviate a lot of those, you know.
Yes.
But the master plan steering committee, if it is posted, I'm sure understand, you'll be there.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
guide them through it.
Yeah,
I mean, really what Erica was saying is, we're not taking a swath of residential zoned lots and turning it into business.
No.
We're not saying, hey, we want Main Street to be all business, so all these lots.
in fact, if anything, we're allowing better planning.
Right,
Because it gives us the ability to
Yeah.
Exactly.
work with the entire parcel, not with the small strip that's along
so,
117.
I agree.
so, and what Erica was saying, it's not, I mean, it would be nice to get their input, but
Yeah.
I don't know that it's something that's, you know, like this drastic change that really is a master.
No,
No,
it's not
I-
a drastic change, but
It's
getting
to head
the
on
support,
questions.
it's to have,
Exactly.
yeah, it's to
That's-
show that extra support
I
from some other
Yeah, that's
parts of
fine.
town.
Because those questions are gonna come up from the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah.
And if, not, I'm not saying he would or that he would need to, but if Bob Romar were to stand up and provide some, you know, support for this,
Like, hey, we
that would
reviewed
turn a
this.
lot of
Yeah.
people's heads, I would think.
Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah, I mean, it allows better planning, and it also makes some of those parcels more appealing, which, you know, feeds into improved commercial development, hopefully.
It's gonna make the
It-
master
it-
plan process easier, in my opinion.
It's gonna make it, it's gonna
Yeah.
make it, it's gonna make those more, those, you know, it's gonna make those parcels more attractive to development.
Yeah. Well, you know-
Which can't hurt when you start talking about taxes
And
and
also,
everything else.
yeah,
so.
also talking about just, you know, selling stuff to the town. You know, the people on the master planning committee are, volunteers, like leaders of the town.
Yeah.
So getting the leaders of the town
Behind it.
it filters down to everybody else.
And
Yeah.
Kia's on that board, so
Yeah.
it'll be good
That'll be
for
good,
her,
yeah.
maybe that would be the appropriate platform to get her on board
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
talk to her next week after the meeting, or if we can get this on the agenda for,
So one of the future meetings.
what, yeah.
Let me ask you, is there a particular parcel or area that you're concerned more than other ones?
At the
So-
town meeting, the capital property
Well,
was.
yeah.
And
So if we were to take that one just kind of off the.
that would clean it up, yeah.
Or just
We
kind of
could.
take it off and go after, and kind of look at Kane property and,
I think that's what that was the main one, that was a
Is-
discussion. I mean, so I would say if we brought it up, a very good point, like if we brought it to the master planning and housing, and they still had some issues with that one, let's just take that one parcel. out.
right, because
And leave
like,
everything else.
I remember
Yeah.
Forbush, that was, it was kinda, it was going well
Yeah,
Yeah.
until the capital, Bolton
Yeah.
Capital
Exactly.
came in and everyone kind of, you know, wait a
Yeah.
minute, hold on. So
Yeah.
rather than, if you put this into a, what's prioritize the lots.
yeah, I think that's
Of what we
the
kinda
main one.
want, that might be a
Yeah,
route to take too.
yeah, I mean, the question is, do we want one lot left that's split
Yeah,
zoning?
I agree, that's.
Yeah.
You know, which
That
is
seems
where
un-
we'd
that
end
seems
end
unfair.
up, which is
Yeah.
really, I mean, it's kind of unfair to them, and it means that anything that we do there in the future would also be open to spot zoning.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
we could-
what I'm
we
saying
could-
is eventually go for it and
Yeah.
get what the idea is, but, you know, we
Yeah.
kinda.
Yeah,
almost
I'm
like-
just saying, you know, I mean, if we said, okay, we can get the rest of them through if we just take that one out, we've got this one parcel there, and if we come back 2 years from now, 10 years from now and say we wanna change zoning there, it's gonna be open spot zoning, it's only affecting one parcel. So we're kind of stuck with that forever and ever if we go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I think our reasoning is sound, so if we're gonna do it, we just do it all.
Well, let's, yeah,
Yeah.
Let's see, I mean,
let's see what master plan and.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I thought just
Direction.
the other,
Yeah.
just in terms of promoting the article too, is, I think it's a great idea to reach out to those, two groups, but then, once the article is ready to go, I'll post it on Facebook and the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
I also thought what I would do is, kind of gather all of these, good ideas of why it's a good idea.
Yep,
Like sort of
And write
like
it
this little
down.
fact sheet
Yes.
of, you know, to
Yeah.
kind of
That's
promote
a
it
great
and,
idea.
and
Yeah.
also have something that explains the building
Yep.
coverage very simply so that
Right.
people can understand that.
Yeah.
I think if we do those, you know, those couple of things, oh, and then the other thing I wanted to note too, last time, I notified all of the owners
yep,
that
Mhm.
were affected by that article. Do you want me to do the same thing again
yes,
this year?
I
Yeah.
would, yes, absolutely, yep.
All right, so bed and breakfast.
Do we wanna, start figuring out who's, by the way, who's gonna be presenting the articles?
I think that would be, yeah,
A good idea.
that would be a good idea.
I do not wanna take the limited business rezoning one. I'll just put that out there.
And it's pretty easy, I mean, I can do them all, but if you wanna do the limited business one, take a crack at
I'll
it.
take the limited business one.
I could do the bed and breakfast one, I don't wanna do
Alright, so Mark's doing the commercial one.
Huh?
that. Mark, alright, so
Yeah.
Mark, you're doing,
Oh, there's no marijuana too, so I've gotta do something, all right? Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's
then
really
Danielle,
only
you're
those
doing
two.
the bed and breakfast.
What's an
just three,
inclusionary?
right? It's part of the inclusionary.
The inclusionary was whether we wanna, and did you ever find out from,
Town council's working on it, so we
Okay.
may or may not need to do an update to the inclusionary housing bylaw. It could just be, the addition of a general
So it might just be
bylaw.
those two.
So
Okay.
that we may not need to do anything for it.
That'd be awesome.
Really, but he's looking further into it. So I have a placeholder because we have a hearing
Right.
coming up, so I sent him this language. If we need it, hopefully it's just a matter of tweaking what I've put here, and if not, we'll just pull it
Yeah,
at the hearing.
perfect.
Well, you can do better with this if you want,
I don't care either way. Whatever, we can decide later.
Yeah.
If you wanna do it, you can do it either way, I don't care.
So do you wanna go through the bed and breakfast bylaw? I don't think we really did that last time.
Okay.
Sure.
okay.
So what it is right now is we don't have.
We don't allow
We
it.
don't allow bed and breakfasts in town.
In
And there
residential.
are, in residential.
We have a couple of grandfathers.
And so we have a couple grandfathered uses. We are trying to revise our bylaws to, allow them so that these are no longer, you know.
Grandfathered, but there's also benefits too. I think that particular use fits within a community like Bolton.
Yeah.
That's, you know, mostly residential. And in addition to that, if a bed and breakfast establishment were to come in, then we can, collect additional taxes.
Well, I think it
So-
would be great, especially since we only have potentially two articles. Can we do two, like, fact sheets on?
We could do it
And,
whatever you
because
need.
I love the idea of what you just said of one, you know, having the article, what we're proposing. Two, what are the benefits that we're trying to say, what will this
I
accomplish?
mean, it'd be good to take it out of,
And-
take it out of legalese and put it into just some
Yeah.
Yeah,
PDF that you could share on Facebook.
Exactly, a one-page
Yeah.
cheat sheet this is what the article's about, and
Yeah.
this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And just have a couple bullet points as to why we're doing it. And I
Yeah.
think that,
Yeah.
if we put that up on the screen, that at least helps, one, it helps us either, us presenting it, but two, really kind of get
Sure.
the short of it across. I think that would be, really good.
Maybe having some pictures of our existing bed and breakfasts would be helpful
Yeah.
for people to visualize
Photos
what that
are always
looks like.
good.
Yeah.
So maybe
Photos are really
Charlotte's
good.
home, I could get permission to use a picture of their
I
home.
emailed the one on
Or-
Hudson Road, that's there, and, she didn't get back to me, so, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, pictures are always really
Something
helpful.
to say, hey, look, we already have this as a grandfather's use.
Yeah,
You wouldn't, it's.
we just,
not
we're
all that
trying to clean it
different,
up to
yeah.
allow them. We also think it could be a benefit for the town.
And we can have
And-
more too.
That's what I mean, like, we
Yeah.
think it could be a
Um,
benefit, and it's,
And I'll also try to find just a generic picture of a bed and breakfast establishment that has up to 10 rooms. So that
Okay,
people can
so they-
visualize what
how
that
big
would
it
look
is.
like, cause that
Yes.
sounds like a lot, but I don't think when you
not
actually
really, yeah.
put it into
Yeah,
know.
going any scarier up in.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
but
no, it's, yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna put a mileage for,
Alright, so I'll put some
so
pictures.
you're gonna take a trip up there to find some good pictures, right?
Yeah, MAPC and various, groups have been archiving, yeah.
I thought we said that the 3 or less was gonna be under a home, accessory home business or something.
I have the whole, so that's the other question too, so I have this whole bylaw under the accessory,
Oh,
bylaw. Because at the end of the day, it has to be, the primary use has
This
to be a
be
home.
residential.
It has-
Yeah.
Someone has to
I
live
think you're
there.
right, yeah.
So it felt
So
like the
otherwise it's
best,
a
it
hotel,
seemed like
right?
the best
Yes.
location to place
Yeah.
it in our zoning bylaw.
Mhm.
If you look at other sections of it, we have, like in-law apartments, we have, that's where the ag business special permit
Yep.
bylaw is.
Mhm.
It just seems like a good fit.
under the accessory use for
Yeah, I
residential.
think that makes sense,
Yeah.
yep.
Cause it's not a business zone.
No, it's
Yeah.
in the residential.
So under accessory, you have a residential, like, heading, right? Well, it'd be residential accessory use, I'm just
No,
trying
the
to
only
envision.
place where, residential is mentioned, I think, in the bylaw itself, and then it's obviously in the schedule of permitted uses,
Yeah.
it would show an SP under residential.
So it's gonna be all under accessory uses, yeah, that makes
Yep,
sense.
yep.
So then establishment is 4 or greater and home is 3 or less. I believe
Yes.
Brian Boyle went and looked and said that we can collect tax on the establishment 4 or
Right.
more, but not on 3 or less.
Right.
That makes sense, cause it, yeah.
Bed
And then
tax,
as far
which is
as the
6%.
parking, that was just standard language I found in several other
Yeah, that's
communities,
fine.
so it seemed reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think this looks good.
What are all your points? The bed and breakfast shall appear incidental to the primary resident use of the dwelling. Bed and breakfast use shall not be substantially detrimental or offensive to the neighborhood. Perfect. Guest room shall contain no individual cooking facilities. Okay. Breakfast may be provided to guests, and visibility of parking services from cross-street shall be minimized. Domestic scale should be maintained in the building's architectural design through massing devices. So, masking?
No?
Massing. Such as
Breaking up the frontage and the roof line, so
Oh.
it doesn't
One
look
big
this
block.
big massive.
Oh, I got it, okay. Pedestrian vehicular movement to from and within the site should be safe and convenient, arranged and not disturb running property should. Yeah, I mean, the whole reason to make it a special permit is to make sure that neighbors aren't gonna be detrimental
Yeah.
Yeah.
impacted, so.
And I'll pass this by the building inspector too, to make sure there's nothing I'm missing,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yep.
There's something else I should do.
There's nothing that we need to, there's not like ADA requirements, right?
I'll talk to Mike
Yeah.
about that, just to make sure there's nothing else in the building code that.
Yeah.
I know it is in the building code, maybe it's something.
I know we were talking about it only being in like pre-existing buildings, like, I'm not sure somebody would build something just to be a bed and breakfast, but I know we talked about that a little bit.
I didn't include that.
I know you didn't, but
Okay.
I'm just
Saying
saying,
if somebody wanted to, why,
We
Why not?
could, I mean, they
Yeah.
can build their
If,
own
uh,
house.
They wanna build a bed and
If-
breakfast,
if-
fine.
If you could make a financial argument for it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
That's gonna be, yeah, I think it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
not
know if we make
against
money
it.
at it.
I'm not
but,
against it, I just know
Yeah.
it was brought up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
no, I
already
think
need,
this is
it
good.
needs to meet all
All
the
the building
code,
codes,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
it says it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you wanna just run it by.
I'll
us.
run it
Yeah,
by
yeah,
you.
yeah, I mean, worst case, he says, yeah, that's, you know,
Yeah.
that covers everything,
so is there anything else that we could think of that could be brought up at town meeting that we need to be prepared for?
With
Oh,
this,
goodness, I'm sorry, yeah.
and.
Well, I talked to-
We'll find out at the hearing,
I talked to, Amy Belowitz, who's a realtor.
Yeah,
And she was all for it. She said she think that there would be pushback for the Airbnb. which
yeah,
Yes.
think
I
was
didn't
what
like
too.
that idea.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she felt just like us that bed and breakfast
It was a
fit.
good fit.
Yeah, it did fit, you know, and she was kinda surprised that it wasn't already allowed.
Allowed, yeah. Okay. And then
Inclusionary
do you-
bylaw, we may or may not.
do we wanna just hold on this one?
So
There's not really, I mean,
what-
unless
what
you
is
have
this-
any.
So what will we change anyway? It's just, we were changing what?
Basically, adding the ability to place a lien
Oh,
on,
okay.
on parcels.
But we weren't-
To
Oh.
guarantee that they're not
Yeah.
sold out from under.
That was the only
requirement.
change, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
it. It's a small, very small.
Okay.
Century, what's the Century Mill Estate bond? Is that us?
That was the Wilson, that was, if Andy, if we decided to
Oh.
pull the bond, we need an article. Did you, well, and he was supposed to be here tonight, showing us what he's got for paving plans, but.
So I
and
spoke to
commitments.
him, actually, I spoke to him this week. So he has been in touch with Aggregate, and Aggregate said that they have availability in the spring right after the plant's open. So I said, okay, great. Can you work on getting the contract set up? And he said he would. And we're also, so I sent him the latest version of the joint check agreement, and he's supposed to, work that out with them in the next week or two. I said, okay, I will circle back with you next week and give you a call. And he said, great. So that's kind of where it stands.
All right, so-
I'm expecting that, I'm hoping, what I gave him actually was a deadline of February 12th. I said, can you be ready to meet the planning board on February 12th with these documents? And he said he would try. So
Okay. So
I
then
can't
let's.
do much more than
No,
that because
let's-
unfortunately, the ball's just not in my court. I
No,
can't
no.
reach out to Aggregate and make them do this.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
really on him.
Did you find out when we had extended the road permit to?
Yes, so that was my question for you. Well, it's maybe, actually, it's really a question for town council, which I sent him today. So we extended it to September 2021. So I don't know, given the fact that we voted to extend it, whether or not that lessens our leverage to be able to pull a bond to say, you didn't finish the road when we've given him an extension, so.
Right.
2021.
The little caveat to that is the board signed it, but Andy never picked it up to sign it and get it recorded, so I don't know if it's not a valid
So
or
at this
because it's
point,
just
I
a
would
record of
say,
vote,
yeah.
does it matter? I don't know, I mean, we do have it in the meeting minutes recorded that the board voted,
Yeah.
so
So at this point, it sounds like we really wanna just try to see if Andy can
I agree.
get it.
Plus, the other piece of it that we talked about is I'm gonna, I wanna sit down with Joe Lynch and talk about whether or not the 254,000 is even gonna be close enough to what we need.
Yeah.
Because if it's not a realistic number at all, I don't wanna put the town in that position.
No,
You know, we'll just try to work with Andy to get it done.
yeah. And have we heard anything about, the affordable, the fee and lieu of over
I
there?
had, it's like one step at a time, I've only
Okay.
talked to him about the
Okay.
paving.
Yeah, that's the main.
Well, no, yeah,
No,
but,
no,
but,
no,
I
no.
mean, all of it's gonna
Yeah.
come home
It
to
all
roost on
comes,
it,
yeah.
so.
Yep, yep.
Alright.
Okay,
So,
So,
master
master
plan
plan.
update. So is this document something that was used for the last time around, or is this
I
all?
believe, Bob used it when they did the long range plan.
Okay,
It was in the early 2000s, and now he's updated it for the master plan steering committee.
yeah,
So the intent is that,
it looks pretty good.
yeah, he's pretty amazing. It's very detailed. Gives you sort of a synopsis of what the process will be, and then as far as the task groups, how they'll sort of operate.
Yeah.
They're each supposed to come
I noticed they said, I mean, I'm sure this isn't like a binding agreement, but they say that task groups should come out of the steering committee. I mean, I assume that people who aren't on the steering committee can join.
No, it's kind of one or two people on the steering committee.
And then have a bunch more.
Oh, okay.
group more,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that's how it reads, okay.
That makes sense.
That have the skill sets
That's how it's being
specific to
implemented,
that.
so,
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And then, there's a complete list in this, report of what the task groups will be.
Where's that?
Page
There we go.
2.
Gotcha.
And so then each task group will be writing that section, or will they be just kind of like doing the research?
They'll be
and-
doing the research.
And then they'll be like-
reporting back to the steering committee.
And then there'll be like writers.
I don't know whether or not they're actually write the sections, or
Yeah.
if they're just providing all the data.
Yeah,
I think they'll be providing reports, so
Yeah.
potentially, I suppose some of that reporting could go right into the
Yeah.
plan, but
yeah.
If you guys, you're on this committee, right?
Yes.
If you need anyone under the climate change, I'm a certified MVP person, and I've just done a, yes. And I've actually done a couple plans for West Bridgewater and North Reading, so, I could help out.
Okay.
I don't wanna be, just, yeah, on the task committee, so,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
that'd
just
be good.
applied
Yeah.
for an MVP grant.
Oh, you did?
But,
Great.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
hopefully everything will go well.
Yeah, I'm actually putting together an action grant now for West Bridgewater, because they got their grant last year, for their plan that we did for them, and now we're trying to, see if we can get some action grants. So, it's great.
Right, you would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, no, I'm all about the,
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, and that's the whole point of the task groups, is that we can get
Yeah.
people with very
And
specific,
And do you keep what was your?
I'm a municipal vulnerable preparedness certified professional. I don't know what the title is, I can't remember. It was a year ago when I went through the training. Yeah.
Something, I'll Google it, that's close
Yeah,
enough
it's,
that I'll.
you had to go through like 2 days worth of training in order to become one of these people, so that, but I just can't remember what it's called.
I'm assuming that
Um,
probably Rebecca Von Wall will be, part of that group as well, so I can
Yeah.
let Bob know that
Yeah,
you wanna
yeah,
be
I
part
definitely,
of that
I'd be
task group.
interested, yep.
Great.
And I'm lead certified in vision as well, vision site professional, so that's the stuff that I like.
but yeah, I mean, that's the goal of the task groups, is to allow people with either a limited
Big
amount of time,
spectrum, yeah.
so they can, focus on one thing, or certain
Yeah.
specific expertise that,
Have you guys started signing up for different test groups?
yeah.
Which ones you sign up for?
Municipal services, facilities, and I need to get my act together on sewer and water.
Yeah, cool, that's what I was hoping.
I mean, I could help out in sewer and water, but my passion is really climate change, so
Okay,
I think that's probably
yeah.
better where,
Yeah, yeah, no, I think, yeah. But the, the goal is that all the task groups will be a much shorter, much
Yeah,
more focused. It's
exactly.
kind of like, take it for, a 2-month chunk to try to
Yeah.
get a bunch of stuff done, and then
and
renew it,
actually,
and then kind of renew it to continue on, or get some different people in, or whatever, so.
along those lines, I wanted to ask you guys, not for this year, but for next year, for a potential bylaw change. So I had an interesting, we had a woman come in giving us at my company a lunch and learn. She's in the lighting industry, but she was really there, and they do like a lot of more high-end, lights. They do like a lot of work in the city of Cambridge and like all this other type of stuff. But she also, talked about how lighting has had this detrimental effect with regard to wildlife and habitat, and ever since the LEDs have really kind of, become so readily available, everyone now just says, oh, for public safety, let's throw in an LED and we're much better off, it's brighter light and all this stuff, and what they're not realizing is that it's having a detrimental effect on wildlife and everything around that. So, long story short, it was a really good presentation, but and it really just pointed to us that there's no regulations really regarding lighting, other than, I know we have the foot candles at the property lines, like they need to be 0, but other than that, there's like a minimum of what you should light within a parking lot or stuff like that, but there's nothing saying, okay, we should watch the maximums. I mean, I know we have cutoffs, but there's a lot of stuff out there that is not great and it's not good. And there's a document out there that's specifically for municipalities to look at of how do you want your area to be lit. And they have different zones, so you like have, it's like zone 1 through 4. Zone 1 would be like complete dark skies, like if you think about West, where they have zoning bylaws, like they don't want any lights because of their tourist attractions
Right,
of the
right.
stars. So there's that, and then I think we're probably maybe like a 2. And then you have 4, which is more like Times Square, where obviously they just have a boatload of light and it's overdone. But they have guidance of what they would recommend for if you're in this area versus this area. And so I just thought, I haven't delved into it yet, but I was like, oh, like this could be great for our town, if it was something that we thought might
I
be
mean, don't
interesting.
we already, I feel like we already get lighting plans.
No, so I'm just gonna say, no, so what this does is it goes above and beyond it, and it basically says, not only should you be looking, I mean, we get lighting plans, and they're gonna say the foot candles, but you should also look at how long are lights being on. I mean, the city
I
of
think we
Cambridge.
get that.
So,
We
but,
get schedules.
but right now, they could leave, so when it gets dark out, they put the security lights on, and then they're on until dawn. And it's just one light, and it, you know, it's for whoever, much of it should be. The city of Cambridge is actually going to the extent of saying, we don't need to light that much. And your eye, I think this whole other thing that I can go into, but anyways, the city of Cambridge, like when it becomes dark, you know, they put the lights on, I think it's like until 10 at whatever the normal is, then they reduce it by 30% until about midnight, and then between like midnight and 6, they reduce it by 50%. So they're reducing the amount of light pollution that's getting there, because really your high safety that you want them to be there is, you know, when you've got a lot of people and stuff like that, and really between midnight 12, while you need it to be lit, it doesn't need to be lit at that level. There's just been a lot of studies that they're saying it's affecting birds, it's affecting all of this, this light pollution and stuff is really affecting habitat and bees and all this other type of stuff. So it was just something I thought, I can do some research and see, and kind of come back with you guys, but.
It affects trees too, the
Yes.
changing of the leaves.
And they were saying how if, you know, in some natural areas where if they have no light, like the certain, or they just do the natural
Mhm.
light, and then it shuts off, they grow like 30% more than if you have artificial light that is constantly giving them the artificial at night and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and that, it was amazing, and she listed all different types of species, and I was just blown away. It was a lot of information that I knew nothing about. And I'll admit to being, I do exactly, because we do lighting plans for towns, or for projects and stuff, and so I've never looked at that, ever. I've always just looked at what's the zoning requirements, what do we need to meet, and what's the foot candle, and not understanding that there's warm light and cold light, and cold light can be very detrimental to a lot of things, but you can't just say, do warm light for everything, because then there are some species that have a negative effect with that. So there's never just one thing will fit everything, so, but that's why there's this guidance book out there, and so I need to get it, read
So
it.
we definitely don't have anything about types of light, we talk about
We talk about
downlight.
fixtures, yes, and that's a good
Downlight.
thing, and that's
But
all
I
good.
do know that, like, when it comes to businesses, we have like lighting plans and stuff, I remember doing stuff like that, but definitely not type of light, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where we need to go a little bit beyond, saying, you know, we recommend them to do LEDs just because LEDs is more cost effective, it's, you know, longer
Cheaper
term,
to run.
cheaper to run. I mean, there's a lot of good things with the LEDs, but I think we need to go beyond that, because unfortunately LEDs light up a lot more than your metal halide light. And so because they provide so much more light, it's becoming detrimental to actually the habitat. So it's actually worth saying, still use LED, but bring the whatever you want, the lumens down or something like that. So
And later at night, when there's not as much traffic, there's not
You
as
don't-
much, you don't need as much.
yeah, like look at a graduated
Yeah.
you know, light schedule.
So what, I mean, so in subdivisions, I mean, that would just go in the rules and regs. For businesses, where do we talk about, I mean, is downlighting in the bylaws somewhere?
It
I think
is.
it is,
It's
because we say cutoffs, we
Yeah.
definitely say
A
cutoffs.
full cutoff, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it would go better if we have some
Yeah.
specific things.
I mean, and I'll look at this
Some
ordinance, so
guidelines.
again, this is for maybe next year, just something that I was completely blown away, and it was brand new information for me, so I was, you know, just shocked, with some of the
It
information.
seems like just adding a few little things to our existing lighting
Yeah, it doesn't
bylaw
need to
could
be,
really make a difference, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and certainly, and that'll be an easy sell.
So,
well,
yeah,
that's what I was
exactly.
thinking, I mean, and as
It's
we,
better for the
Environment.
environment,
Exactly.
better for the birds and bees,
But
and
even-
everybody will be up for it.
but
so.
and it just yes, exactly, so I thought it was good.
I'm not against it, I'm just saying I feel like we have some of that already, but maybe I'm just not.
We do have some of it.
We've taken some baby steps, this is
Yeah.
the next,
Yeah, yeah.
this is the next few
Right.
steps.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sounds
the
like so.
huge one is, you know, obviously the cutoffs, you know, not having lights that go straight up is a big one. But yeah, going beyond that is.
I think what we kind of just do is the detrimental clause of special permits, we just throw lighting plans or into that, you know.
Yeah, so I think it's just one of those, I'll read this ordinance and just see what it
Yeah,
says.
do it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, so that'll be my next little.
Good, good.
So
So
who's
you
it-
get to present it next year.
Yes, okay. Well, just like the stormwater, so this
Yeah.
is, I'm
Yeah,
not as, you know, lighting's new for me, but.
So
So I
Amy,
take it you'll run again then? Since we're talking about
doesn't,
next
Potentially.
year.
doesn't sound like somebody leaving.
No, it doesn't.
Amy said that you asked her for the economic part, which is good. And she-
Oh, for her to be on it, yeah.
Is there anybody else from the EDC, you think? Who, is there anybody else on that one yet?
I just thought of Amy because,
Yeah.
she really likes to participate.
Yeah,
and
for
she
sure.
always,
She was like, do you think it'll be a lot of work? I'm like, well, it could be, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
anything like.
Well, again, I mean, the good thing about the task groups is that we're kind of breaking it into, trying to break things into small chunks
Yeah,
that are focused on one thing, so it's not, you know, it's not like it's a 2-year commitment to get through the entire master plan, it's, you
Yeah.
know, a 3-month, you know, 1 month or 3 month sort
Mhm.
of commitment to focus on one thing and get it done.
yeah,
And then maybe re-enlist for the next,
yeah.
the next task in that topic sort of thing.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, with the housing product, the affordable housing kind of slowing down and getting towards a document. And then when that ends, maybe I could jump on the
Yeah,
economic
sure.
one. I don't know that I'd want to be doing both at the same time,
Okay,
but when that one, yeah, I'm interested in that one.
okay. So you're interested in EDC?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
not right now?
No, you know, I'll do it because it's dying down.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
let them know.
I think Amy, having 2 people from the EDC would be good.
Yeah,
What about like Mike Murphy? I know he's not on the EDC anymore, but he has a more like regional
I can ask him.
perspective. I think he would be good.
yeah, I forget who's heading up the economic task group.
It could be, so Brian Boyle, reached out to, a resident, his name is Paul Tassini, I believe, lives on Wilder Road. He, has a business in Hudson called Diamond Technologies. And, he said he may be interested in taking Kevin Meadock's position. So if he does, then I assume he will be part of that task group as well.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, good.
And this board will have to appoint him, once that's, if he
Yeah.
confirms,
Yeah.
so.
So this schools portion, that's you're gonna, I mean, you're gonna pull in, I mean, cause I know there's a bunch of like
I know
study groups
Candy's
already.
on it, I can't recall. who
I mean,
else
cause
is
really
on it.
that is, I mean, we're looking at, I know like, you know, Harvard has an extra $1,000 a year assessment for the next 20 years for what they just did, you know, so that's gonna be a big, I mean, that's why people come to the town, that's why
Yeah.
everything rides around the schools.
Well, and the biggest thing, isn't there talk already that we need a new high school?
Mhm.
Or a major renovation,
Yeah.
if that's
Yeah.
even possible with what we
I
have.
didn't think that was, well,
And they have 6 years to get it done before we're in the,
I need, not mine's going next year.
Oh
Yeah.
my god,
Yep,
that's impossible.
yeah. Yeah, my oldest is in 8th
was
grade.
it 14-year-olds, right? Yeah, so I got 85.
Yeah, he's turning 14 next month. I can't believe he's like 2 years away from driving. Holy crap, that's gonna be
That
scary.
blows my mind because the few times they've been here. and
Well, he's
meetings-
never come to, have I brought all three of them? Usually I
Yes,
bring,
you have.
oh, I have brought all three of them, okay.
And I
Usually I bring
thought
my
they
two
were- They
youngest.
look much younger. Oh, wait, do you have another little boy?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
maybe I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
him.
because usually I bring
Okay.
Jacob and Jasmine, so Jacob's in 5th grade.
Okay.
And Jazz is in
That's
3rd
okay,
grade.
that sounds.
Yeah,
about
so
right.
those two are usually the two, because usually it was, Zachary had soccer, so Matt was off taking him somewhere, and I was bringing the
Yeah,
other two
okay.
here. Yeah, 'cause I don't think Zachary's, I've actually taken him, all three of them, to some of my work hearings. I did twice, go to Sherborne. And I was like bribing them, I'm like, here's some candy, here's just whatever, just please be quiet, I'll try to be as quick as I can.
Yeah, this is great. Looks like you guys have a really good,
Bob's done
good
a tremendous
momentum.
amount.
Yeah,
Work.
this is
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Already.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow, I actually like starting this at 7.
Yay,
It's not
me
even
too.
8:30 and we're,
Yeah.
There you go.
And speaking of that, I'll move to adjourn.
yes, second.
All in
Awesome.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine.